YouTube, it's Faye, and for today's video, check out what I've got in the shop. This Mk4 Supra, yes, I'm stoked on it, and it has a coolant leak, so we're gonna be repairing that today. It's a very common 2J and 1J coolant leak, actually, so let me show you where it's at. Let's get right into repairing it. Let's just take a peek in this beautiful engine bay, and you can see right there, we've got that coolant bypass pipe. There's an O-ring up top and an O-ring up bottom, and this is a very common leak. Now, the owner also suspects that there is some leaks at the heater core hoses. However, upon pressure testing, this is always gonna find the path of least resistance first. So really, I cannot tell what else is leaking on this vehicle until we fix this one first, then I can re-pressure test and just see for him if there's anything else going on. So let's start by getting this out of there and replacing those O-rings. Ooh, I'm not sure I like this. Underneath the vehicle, I'm seeing a lot of pink crusty coolant forward of that coolant leak that I'm seeing, but we're gonna start by draining it, and this could just be pushed from the mechanical fan. It's always tricky when you've got a leak near a fan because the fan will just tend to throw whatever fluid is kind of everywhere around the vehicle. So we're just gonna drain the coolant out here at the little drain, and looks like there's already a little hose, so that's cool. Another option is actually, just to make it a little easier, I may do it from that lower radiator hose. That just looks like a better bet. Let's do that. Once we got it angled right, then we can take off the cap to release that vacuum and let it drain a little bit faster. Now that enough coolant has drained out to where I won't make a mess, I'm going to disconnect this upper radiator hose and push it out of the way. Now that we have our upper radiator hose out of the way, and of course our air intake, our filter, you can see we've got these two 12mm bolts right here. I'm gonna take those off, and that's all you need to disconnect this coolant pipe here from the side of the cylinder head. Now we're gonna have to unclip some electrical connectors here, which I find easier to do when I can see them, though some people find it easier to disconnect these first, using both hands prior to removing the bolts, so they don't have to hold the pipe in place while you pull the connectors off. Really, whatever's easiest for you. Now that we have that upper neck off, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So there is one O-ring, and you'll see very shortly that in there is another O-ring. You can see the part that was exposed. This is not part of the sealing surface, so I can grab it from here, but I'm gonna be super careful. We don't want anyone to be able to tell that we were in here, so we don't wanna leave any marks behind on this or anything like that. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a shop rag over it and very gently vice grips, but only down where I know it's not going to be on the sealing surface, right? So I'm going to grab it like right here, and you see it's so loose on there, not going to hurt anything. And we're just gonna, this just gives us a little bit more leverage, right? So now I can just start to wiggle it back and forth and gently pull up on it. All right, so there it is, and look, you can see how flat this seal is. Oh man, no wonder it's not sealing. Wow, and then you can see all the crud that's in this one. So I'm gonna make sure that I clean up this hole really well and make sure that there's nothing in there. And I might actually do a coolant flush too. Let's see in there. Yeah, no, I think it looks fine. It's a new day. I had to wait for a part to come in, and this is the new part. This is the drift motion billet pipe, and it comes in 3 sizes. There's one for the 2JZ, which is obviously this size. They make one for the 1J, and then of course the 1.5JZ, because they're that cool. And then it comes with the O-rings. Now, I could have just ordered the O-rings from the dealership and replaced this and put this back on, because this one is in good shape. Quite often what you'll see on these is a bunch of pitting in and around the sealing surface, and that is also, you know, aside from just these O-rings going bad, that's also what can cause these to start leaking. And normally in that case, you've got some electrolysis going on, so check your grounds, people, or maybe be better about flushing your coolant a little bit more regularly. But anyway, this is fine. It was his choice to upgrade it and replace it with this one at this time, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do that. We're gonna put this in right now. I am gonna set this aside though, put it back in his box of used stuff, because this is a good part. He could sell this, or I don't know, throw it away. But now we're just gonna install these O-rings onto the pipe, just ever so carefully. Once I get them on, I like to just sort of run them around to make sure that they're, I mean, these are fine. These are not square cut. It's really the square cut ones that you have to have an issue with them settling But at this point, we're gonna lube them, and you can lube these up with anything prior to installation. You can use silicone paste, you can use Silglide or petroleum jelly, or even, the general rule of thumb, I like to lube up the seals with whatever it's gonna be coming into contact with. So in this case, I mean, think about how slippery coolant is. We can just lube this up with coolant, which is what I'm gonna do this time. Before I install the water pump pipe, I'm taking a Scotch-Brite pad and cleaning up the inside of the sealing surface for that O-ring. I will note that while I don't show it here, I did flush out the thermostat housing area with distilled water prior to reassembly, because I decided that a coolant flush of the entire system wasn't necessary after all, but I didn't want any of the particles from my cleaning to get into the coolant. Then, after coating the O-ring in coolant, I slid the bottom portion of the pipe into place, then cleaned up the inside sealing surface of that upper bypass pipe before installation, then removed the old paper gasket off where the upper pipe mounts to the cylinder head, replaced the gasket with OEM of course, coated both sides of the gasket with aviation forma gasket before installing, then pressing the upper pipe gently down onto the water pump pipe until it's seated, reinstalling my 2 bolts and torquing the specification. Once that is back in place, let's plug our sensors back in and connect that upper and lower radiator hose back up. The last step is checking our work by putting the system under a vacuum. I like to let mine hold for 5 to 10 minutes. Then we will refill the system with coolant. You can see I have some fresh Toyota Long Life Red here that I'm about to mix up. And then take a test drive and verify no coolant leaks. I do have quite a bit more work to do to this car before I'm ready to go for a test drive, however. One thing I'm gonna do is remove these heater hoses and wrap them in some heat resistant sleeves, so I'm not ready to fill my coolant just yet. But that pretty much wraps up this simple, fun coolant leak repair to this beautiful Mk4 Supra. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that this tutorial gave you the confidence that you needed to replace the water pump pipe on your Mk4 Supra or other 2JZ powered vehicle. Alright, that's all for now. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!
You are so cute. Hi, sweet. How do you see?